New digital technologies are driving a step change in enterprise business transformation. At the Digital Twin Podcast, we explore the intersection of technology and business. What should your digital twin look like?
Welcome to season two, episode two. Today's podcast is going to be on digital transformation post COVID. I'm pretty sure a lot of people out there have seen a lot of news articles, some of the trends that might be happening um, during and after COVID, and what will stay as some people call this the new normal, Hari.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that are happening out there that um, will really affect how we do business in the future. And I think we're going to be seeing some of that. So I think, some of the areas that are pretty prevalent that we're seeing is, you know, remote work is obviously one that's really out there in the media, and people are kind of, looking at what's going on there. Um, to me, you know, people have been doing some of this at some capacity. Um, but during COVID, people are trying to experiment to see if this really is something that could be useful for their work environment. And I think people are starting to realize that, you know, the way we do things today versus tomorrow or pre-COVID were eye-opening, right? I think a lot of people needed a push to experiment and to feel what it would be like versus, worrying about quarter to quarter or whatever the day to day might be. And this COVID experience that we're going through today, has really taken the task to a lot of these executives and a lot of these organizations to really run through uh, the rhythm of how this would work. And I think, what we're seeing, the anecdotal evidence is I think people are looking at this as this could be somewhat something we look at as a future capability or a future cadence or a future model and how we might operate our infrastructure, right? Or our
Yeah.
organization.
Well, the remote work has always been around, and the trend has been in and has been out. But the most companies have been kind of forced into having to evolve and adapt to the remote work environment, right? And so it's not that they were not aware of the technology or they just couldn't adapt to it fast enough, but I think the circumstances put most every company in that position to be productive in a very quick time frame. And they had to do that in some cases with large companies, they had to do globally, and they had to do that in a fairly short span of time. And so I think the learning the organization had, are continuing to have, as well as the employees that are continuing to learn that they can actually do just about anything that they have done on premise at an office from a remote site. A lot of the times, I mean, I still hear my colleagues that have, I've personally worked remotely from home for quite a number of years, but I've had my colleagues tell me that they've found themselves to be more productive because they didn't have the commute, and they didn't have to have the niceties. You get right to work when you're in a meeting. You know, there is activity, action right away. So there is a lot of unproductive time being cut. And so this is, what I'm trying to say is this has been a learning experience for organizations, both the leadership as well as the folks that have been um, actually, doing the work and being productive remotely. So more than anything, this has been the circumstances that have led us to this. I think the technology has been ready for a very long time. And as you and I know that, right?
Yeah, I think, the technology has been there, but I think more so in the last few months, it's been, you know, as I say, flexing its muscles to really see what it's all about, what it can really push, right? And I think, to your point is very well taken, is that everyone is getting used to a different way, a different model, a
Hmm.
different environment of working,
Yeah.
where your cubicle or your office is now having to be remodeled inside your home because you start the day from your cup of coffee to your office, right? Versus, big cities. I mean, give you an example. A typical day for me could be, 45 minutes in the morning, an hour and a half on the way back home just to start the day. And yeah, I have some great podcasts that I like to listen on the road. Maybe I might, you know, miss out on a few of those, luxuries and kind of ways of traffic and how I deal with that. But, I get my time. My time is closer to my family, to work,
Yep.
or to where I need to be. And to me, that provides a unique advantage to working with
Your commute
companies at
time is
different.
probably not, very unusual, right? If I knew a lot of folks in the greater New York City area. An hour of commute is just typical, and I believe, again, I'm not looking at the actual statistics right now, but what I know is an average commute is around 20 to 25 minutes. But that's just to get there. Then you settle in. There's a lot of dead time.
Yeah.
And
So
so
you're talking about efficiencies, the necessities of working in an office, the costs of having enough space
operating a
for all,
facility.
and you get a lot of people that have office space that aren't utilizing these spaces because, you're starting to see these remote and shared spaces kind of really elevating their game because there is a necessity. And as you start talking about the gig economy, the freelancers, the contract work that's all available and around us, how does that change the dynamics of traditional full-time
Yeah.
employees and how you work through that, new environment of opportunity becomes much more available to these full-time employees to say, hey, maybe I can split my time up between different things for the exact tasks or functions that you require of me. And,
I
this
think
is kind of a unique space,
I
right?
think
I
you
mean,
you
that we're
brought up
seeing.
you brought up an amazing topic, and I think this is good. This is an area that I think we're going to see a significant shift in, is the Upworks of the world, the Fivers of the world, where you can get your best talent, no matter where they reside in the world. You have access to them, right? And if you're an organization that believed that you needed to have these folks inside of the facility, face to face, interacting with the rest of your team, but suddenly realize that, hey, they don't need to be in the office. They don't need to be in downtown New York City or downtown Atlanta or downtown San Francisco. Suddenly the world opens up. The opportunity to hire somebody, the best of the best, whether they are located in any parts of the U.S. or Canada or Brazil or Japan or France, as long as you can get through the language barriers, right? If you can get your best talent anywhere in the world, which is what a company like Upwork would offer, right? Um, doesn't that open up a whole world of possibilities for companies?
I think it does. I think it does. It changes things, right? But to be honest, it changes things in a much more, the way I look at it is it changes things in a much more um, flexible, convenient way. But what this will force is absolute clarity and task responsibility and task delegation to
Mm-hmm.
these individuals to be very clear on what is expected.
Right.
So clarity is going to be a very big and clear, um, requirement for this to be successful, for having multiple people work on different things. Because, as you know, in organizations, when there's no clarity for people that are even, working there full time for years, things can get lost in communication. And
Absolutely.
The communication is going to have to be much more sharp, much more clear, much more focused that this environment can thrive. Um, and you start to get into, some of the things of what's proprietary, what's not, and how much do you share, not share. So that all that will also play into effect. But for the mundane tasks, for the things that are very clear that are expected of certain people or certain tasks within different functions of the business and the value chain, you might find some synergies there. And I think
Absolutely.
it can be very unique. So it could be a good thing. It could be a really good thing for
Yeah.
organizations to be, while there's resources available at a nice, unique, maybe abundance price, we need to be very clear on what we want to deliver.
Yeah.
So it could be a twofold. So
Another branch of remote work that we didn't touch on is the experts. No matter what area of expertise or specialty, the experts could reside anywhere, right? Now that the remote work and the ability to have access to an expert, regardless of where they're located, right? Now, we're worth maybe thinking of fundamental tool sets like voice over IP, the Zoom, the Skypes of the world, right? But if you think about that even or expand that further into augmented reality, virtual reality uh, tools that you can use to have an expert be present right with you, whether you're in a manufacturing floor or you're in a refinery, whether you're in a hospital, have someone walk you through with the same, visibility, visuals, and the sounds. That's powerful, and that's another area that's gaining a lot of traction, and it has already been. But you see how a post-COVID world can
so
kind of
like a sidekick, you have a sidekick
absolutely.
right by you, a sidekick to really help guide, you know, the evolution of a training of an individual that's doing certain tasks or might be trying to elevate their learnings within certain focused areas. I mean,
Or
that's a
avoid travel. You're in a remote facility, and the expert is located in another state, another country, another town. And if there is a need for you to limit travel or completely eliminate travel, here's the opportunity. It's not just a phone call. It's not just a video call. You now have the ability to see what that person is seeing in the field, just exactly what they see, and be able to provide that assistance as a first-hand helper, or could be providing training, like you said. And it could be coming from a vendor, it could be coming from an SME at a corporate facility, it could be establishing standards in safety and operations from an enterprise corporate level globally, right? I mean, the opportunity is endless, right? And that realization that all of these tool sets were available to us and now can be leveraged to to protect their people, protect the employees, keep them safe, limit travel, but also at the same time be productive, right? And have a much more productive team and an organization, reduce cost. I mean, that's all added benefits.
Yeah, I see. You know, one big thing other than just remote work is, you know, how people are learning today. I mean, during this 2 to 3 month experiment, I mean,
Yeah,
things have to go on. I mean, you'd be surprised how much force and fortitude that how quickly big organizations have transformed just to be able to deliver on
because it's
their
necessity.
obligation. It's a necessity.
Yep.
So we've actually seen the acceleration of a lot of these technologies and trends of necessity being run through the you know the beta, the POC, the whatever you want to call it phase to full implementation because they need to.
Right.
And that is a trend that I think we're going to start to see a little bit of more traction than we would normally not see. I think that's one that's really going to be here to figure its spot. I think there's going to be some play there that
Yeah.
oh, this post-COVID world, I think we're really going to see something develop on that track. How it evolves, we'll see, but I think it's going to be something that's going to definitely be something to think
It's here to
about.
stay.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what have you experienced? Have you seen some of those, some of your colleagues or even some of the kids, like that are working remote? We even daycare. I mean, as far
Yeah.
as daycare is offering remote learning to, kids that are, in daycare. Can you imagine how far that's gone? You know, and how much an individual daycare can reach their business
Yeah.
outside of the confines of their geographical location if they have great content and the kids are actually learning from it.
Yeah. And that's, I
So,
mean, to you mentioned a good point. It's an area of a massive acceleration is remote learning, right? Just about every university, every educational institution, whether you're an established, university or a small school, everyone is trying to figure out how to establish a remote learning system that's effective, that's smooth, that's predictable, that's reliable, um, with the real outcome in mind, right? We have
mhm.
kids today sitting at home, and we need to have, again, we don't know what the future holds for us, right? I mean, we're in a good, state of the economy at the moment, given where we are with COVID, but we just don't know the future. Whether it's COVID or another calamity that hits us, we need to be prepared. So I think that realization has hit every organization, every educational institution, and you also see a large number of companies that are either beefing up their offerings or coming up with new and innovative solutions to help solve that problem, because that's also here to stay. Um, I think there is a clear realization that um, education can be had at a relatively lower cost, which it's going to be interesting to see. There's been a lot of um, up, I would say controversy around the cost of education in the university, right? And higher education, and how that doesn't really connect quite well with what people are earning and their cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. So now you add this a complete different variable to this, and create affordable, lower cost education delivered live and in an effective way, and can get you to a similar or closer outcome. Now we're challenging our own societal norms and systems, right? And that's
you
somewhat here
know,
to stay as well.
I think you hit on a very, for me, this is a very interesting topic because what value? You start to look at the value and you start to put money to it, right? Whether it's education, whether it's remote working, um, you know, you start to hear, well, should we reduce the costs to the employee because they're not driving as much to the office of what we pay people because of the perceived new realities and cost savings? Should we pass that over to the individual? Or should, companies look at it as a value or a tool that's being able to attract talent that may like these types of arrangements, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to be struggling, not struggling with that, but that's the question that's going to be asked and it's going to be filtering through. Same with education.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, you know, this is a transition period, right? We start to really ask ourselves, what are we really getting from a
What's
value point
okay?
of view?
Yeah, that's right.
What's okay? What are we really getting?
Yeah.
And what are we really pricing or valuing these things as?
And how much is that worth, right? And
Yeah.
so if the interaction on campus is
Campus
is
is
what's gonna,
valuable.
yeah, it is valuable, no question, right? But how much is it worth,
That's
right?
true.
I think we
Right.
as a society, we're now testing it, right?
That's this is a very interesting space because we are going to now let the market decide what is valuable, what is not to some extent.
And
You
that's
know,
a clear outcome of COVID. And
yeah.
we know for a fact there are some universities, and I don't know any in the U.S. that have done this, but in Europe that have established remote learning for the next academic year. That's a
Wow.
significant change. Are you going to continue to charge the same tuition? Would that make sense? Would that be same value? But what is value? Is a certificate the value? Is a degree from Harvard or MIT? Is that what matters? And so with the price
Well, is
of
that the value or is the outcome the
well,
value?
that's a again, these are questions that are
Well,
going to
I
be
mean, I
yeah
mean, we're starting to interlace qualified people to do certain tasks in this environment of remote working or remote availability of resources all over the world. If you have an MBA grad out of Harvard versus a non-graduate from, you know, from a different part of the world that can do the same task effectively, how would that ultimately affect an organization on how they actually do things? If they find someone that is so good at the task and so good at doing what they do, and
yeah
they haven't had the proper training or formal education, but they can do it well. What would what would stop them from getting the outcome or the result that they desire
yeah.
at a price that they want versus something that is, you know, a traditional norm?
It's definitely a topic for discussion. It's a complex
I
one,
think
right?
so. It's a
Yeah.
very
It's a
complex
complex
discussion,
one
but I think
because
it's going to be grappled.
you're then fundamentally questioning the value of education for multiple years in college, right?
Of
What is
course,
that
because
providing an individual? How does that prepare that person to go to workforce? And does that person, is that person enabled to do better? Are they equipped to do better than a person that maybe self-learned coding and management and whatever fields you're in, right? But the question here is that democratization of learning happening just the same way an Upwork is making skills, highly desirable skills and talented people available to anybody, regardless of whether you're Google or whether you're a startup, and you're getting access to that resource and that level of talent pool at as a freelancer, right? As a freelance contract.
well, you pose a very interesting point there, right? So really, what we're talking about here is the barriers to entry to anyone who wants to do something great, to have access to talent that is accessible in a way that has never been in the before
Yeah,
in the past before, right? So you're really in certain ways, how information and the internet came about is the talent that was only available to certain organizations and people that can afford it can now be available to anybody that says, hey, I want to get into this game. And I can now pick and choose how I want to get into this game at a much more flexible and
yeah,
nimble way that
absolutely.
I have never seen before in my life.
If I want to,
Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Guess what?
you
All
can.
you need to know, where can I find the resources to help me do A, B, and C? And the more clear I am what A, B, and C is, the more effective and the more really, if you think about it, the more they can grow this organization from really nothing, from the ground up to something.
So if you're Google as an enterprise, you always had the ability to hire the best and the brightest, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could hire the best data scientist and the best full stack developer and whatnot. But to your point, as a startup, you can do the same thing in a flexible fashion at a price you can afford at a reasonable, investment. You have essentially access to talent that was once only available to big companies who would hire graduates right out of college at a fairly large, compensation package, and and nobody else could afford them, right? A Google, a Facebook, an Amazon would pay the best, and still they demand the best, right? Right out of college. But that doesn't stop a startup from having access to the best talent pool in the world.
You know, and this is very interesting because we're seeing this trend, even pre-COVID, of this democratized
Absolutely.
talent. And and really what we're saying here is that this COVID really has almost accelerated the possibilities
Yeah.
of this to be a much more of a reality post-COVID, a trend that could be much more here to stay than we would have ever thought.
And
Uh,
what would that do to the education field?
oh, yeah,
How would
that's
that impact it? How would the universities transform to adapt to a new world?
well, I think the adaptation will be much faster because the means of adjusting and the ways that people get information is just, hey, here's a new way, here's a new content, deliver it. And everybody can automatically adjust in a rapid pace on what's available, what's not available to them. Whether it's free, non-free, whatever.
Yeah.
Think about the access to information if you want to learn, if you want to be great.
Yeah.
Market should, I mean,
Yeah. Again, pre COVID, like you pointed out, some of these were available, right? I mean, you could
yeah,
find
they
just
are.
about anything you want to learn, you could find on YouTube, and somebody's teaching it most of the time for free, right? Um, and so this happened pre-COVID, but post-COVID, the question really is the structured education that we have in the society today, in the community today. How would that adapt to this new world, right? Or are they going to stay the same? Is that not going to impact them?
To be competitive in this new space, I think, you know, we're going to be looking at outcomes, right? And I come back to that that you know somebody who's got
Cost
the
value.
best MBA that's delivering me value versus somebody that may or may not have that can give me the same outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is market and demand. So this world, the way we do things will shift, and the value of traditional education, the prestige, may be great for appearances for shareholders and stock, uh, you know, um, board members that can say, hey, we got everything lined up. But we're going to see a much more fragmented, agile world where M&A is going to be very active and technology and strategy will be shifting as fast. You're talking about a 5-year plan. Nobody's going to be talking about a 5-year plan 5 years from now. We talk about, hey, what are we doing in the next year?
Yeah.
That's how fast things are going to be moving. I mean, and so we got to be ready for that new reality. And I think, while kind of a little, I wouldn't say concerning, but, the adaptable must adapt and get ready for the new world that's coming because I don't think a lot of people these days have a lot of patience. I think our patience are growing
I
very
agree.
thin, especially as we start, having expectations of information and data and what's expected of what companies want and what people, desire. It's only getting tougher and tougher out there. So the evolution of companies and organizations to evolve to satisfy that, I think is going to be a big, unique opportunity, I would say, for a lot of people to kind of participate, which I think could be a very unique thing and a pretty advantageous things for people that have never really had the opportunity to do that.
Agree.
So,
Absolutely.
so with that, I think we're getting close to our time there for season 2. Like I said, if you have any questions you want to post up and follow up with us and have any questions, please feel free. We've been getting a lot of your requests um, um, through email and through chat, and we are digesting that and putting those pieces into our repertoire to kind of go over some of these new trends that are happening out in the space. Like I said, welcome If you're new to the Digital Twin Podcast, this is Hari and Omar, and we really appreciate and enjoy your support. And catch us on the next episode.
Yeah, and check us out at digitaltwinpodcast.com. Also on YouTube, we have a channel. Please subscribe and look forward to connecting with you. Take care.
Have a good one.